My name is Jess Knopfsinger. My students call me Nafi. In India, they called me Jess Teacher. And I teach middle school engineering in Denver, Colorado.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good morning.
My name is Ritika, an 8th grade student from Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. I am so privileged to interact with you. Namaste from India. Here my question is, what is the importance of STEM education in classroom?
All right, great question. Give me 1 second. So STEM education is important in classes because it helps prepare students like you for the jobs of the future. We don't know what the jobs are going to be in 20 or 30 years. 20 years ago, when I started teaching, there was no artificial intelligence. There was not a smartphone, and Google was not yet a thing. You couldn't get on the computer in Zoom. So all of those jobs are new in my teaching career. So STEM is important because it teaches students to think critically, solve problems, and engage on real hands-on, real-world problems and projects.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answer my question.
Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. Nice.
Yes.
There you go. And for that last question, these are students of mine who just got done building an experiment for NASA, which is our space organization. All right, go ahead, young lady. What is your next question?
She's another Jessica.
Oh, another Jessica. Nice to meet you.
Good evening, ma'am. Nice to meet you. This is Jessica, an 8th grade student. Namaste from India. I'm so glad today to interact with you. I would like to ask you a question. My question is, what is STEM problem-based learning?
Great. So problem-based learning is how I teach in the United States. So my students do not have lectures. Instead, what we do is we look at a real-world problem. We learn the information we need to solve it. And then we come up with solutions and we present those solutions to other people. So for example, right now, I'm working on creating a problem-based learning unit on my trip to India, and we're gonna look at air pollution and different ways we can solve air pollution and make low-cost air filters.
Okay, say thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, from answering my question.
Thank you for asking.
So you bring your notebook to note down yourself.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am good. How are you today?
I am fine. Thank you, ma'am. I am so glad to be part of this session. Did you enjoy in India?
I loved India. I was just introducing my children to Indian food last night. They were excited.
I will ask my question. How do
All
we
right.
get ready for assessment in STEM?
All right. How do we prepare for assessment in STEM? In STEM, our assessment, the first thing you need to understand is what is it you're supposed to be learning? So are you learning about rockets? Are you learning about computers? Review class materials. And in STEM, it's very important to make sure you understand the material that you're learning and review it, but also the skills that you've been practicing. Practice solving problems of any kind. And then collaborating with peers. Students in my classroom work together in teams. So on this picture on the screen, what you can see is a team of my students that are presenting their final project to a group of 3rd grade students on landers for Mars.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering to my question.
Thank you for asking. It was nice to meet you.
So Jessica, I have just seen the one posting on your Facebook that your students have made one experiment and they send it to the stratosphere.
Mhm.
Could you please
Yes.
say something about that?
Yes. So we actually have had 2 teams that have done this. So do you guys see this white box in the middle of the screen?
Yeah. Yes.
So this is what's called the flight box. And what we did was we wrote proposals to NASA to come up with experiments. And the first group, which are these boys, built an experiment to look at how a gyroscope would spin in microgravity. Their experiment was launched on a rocket ship in May. And unfortunately, there was an anomaly and our rocket ship did not make it into orbit. Last week, my second group of students built their sent their project up in a high atmosphere weather balloon. Let me grab a picture here really quick. And so what they designed was an experiment to look at shipping materials as they go to outer space. And so and this was the balloon that our rocket went up on. It traveled to 70,000 feet. This is our team. Well, 3 of our team. We're still on vacation in the United States. My students won't start school for another 2 weeks.
Oh.
So they came in early to school to watch it launch. And then this is what it looked like that morning. So these were the scientists that were launching our balloon and engineers. And this was before the balloon filled. And as soon as the sun rose, they took and they powered up our experiments. And you can see this built in. And then they went to the stratosphere. So yesterday, this box came back. And this is the balloon right before it launched. So we just got our experiment back yesterday. And when my students come back to school, we'll look at the data to see what type of materials best blocked the sun's radiation.
So a really amazing experiment. I think you are so fortunate and your students also very lucky to have a great teacher like you and to involve themselves in a meaningful experiments like this that you have just shown. Thank you so much.
Yes. Hello. Namaste.
My name is Somyasri, an 8th grade student from Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. I am so proud to ask a question. My question is, what is STEM education?
All right, so STEM education and STEAM education. Let's talk about the 2. So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And it really focuses on the technical skills and problem solving for those areas. When we talk about STEAM education, then we also add the arts and really focus on being creative in how we solve those problems. In the United States, STEAM and STEM can look like a lot of different things. So for example, on the screen here, you see a math project that I created with my students where they designed a quilt that used certain fractions of each color.
Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you for asking.
Okay, next. Bring the book, please. Yeah, come on.
Good evening, ma'am. It's an honor to ask you a question. This is Joshna, an 8th grade student. Namaste from India. I would like to ask you a question. What training sessions of the STEM teachers in your country to strengthen this program?
Great question. So STEM training, this here, you can see all these teachers. They came to school last week during summer vacation to learn about STEM education. So we have what are called pre-service teacher courses. That's where your teachers go to school to learn how to be teachers. And so most of those programs now include STEM education. There are also teacher professional developments. So there's 2 different types. So today I went to a training on content knowledge. So today we went to a physics class and learned about car safety and car crashes. Or there are pedagogical teaching programs or trainings that teach us the skills we need to teach in this way. There are also many master's degree programs after teachers finish university. So for example, I did my master's degree at the Tufts University in Boston to learn how to teach engineering in K-8 spaces. And finally, there's many trainings that are put on with either universities or businesses that have interest in STEM fields to help build teachers' knowledge.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering the question.
Thank you for asking.
Yes, Jesse, I have one supplementary question in this regard. You have just told us that you have in-service service education development programs. So you have done one degree through one university. So are all these academic excellence, academic programs are within this your curriculum or just your own interest? And what does the government do? And does the government provide the money for the completion of these degrees and post graduation, or is it your own effort to complete the degree, and do you have to bear the expenses that are needed for the completion of this additional degree or post graduations?
Great questions. There is not one clear answer. The answer is it depends on where you live.
Okay.
And so in the school district, the area that I live in Colorado, the STEM program is supported by our local school district and our state government. All of the money, all of the training, all of the materials come from them. There are other areas of the country where teachers want to incorporate STEM education, but there are not funding sources for those, and then teachers would pay for them out of their own pocket.
Okay, thank you so much. Here is another student.
Great.
And they are all taking the running notes of your answers.
Yes, I can tell they're taking great notes.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good morning.
I am super lucky today to ask you a question. This is an Harsha 8th grade student from Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. My question is, what is the difference between STEM and STEAM?
Great. We talked about this a little bit, but I'm gonna give you another example. In STEM projects, it's not usually about the final project, it's about the process. It's what does it teach you about how you create something. In STEAM, we add that other piece of craftsmanship. We want to make things that are appealing and beautiful and help make the world a better, more beautiful place.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
This is Harishna, an 8th grade student from Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. Can I ask you a question, ma'am?
Yes, please do.
Is it possible to implement the STEM program in Indian schools, especially in schools?
Yes, it is definitely possible. So these are actually 3 sets of STEAM lessons that I saw when I was in India. So first, this was an elementary school in Hyderabad, or primary school, and they were doing a STEAM project to learn about fractions. The second is a high school physics class in Delhi. And third, down here is a robotics class that Padma Priya, your teacher's friend, teaches. In order for STEM to take root in India, there are some really concrete steps that need to happen. First, you have to have curriculum being developed. What is STEAM education and what do we want students to know and be able to do? Next, we need to train our teachers on how to teach STEM. It is a much different game when I teach than when I lecture. So if I taught a traditional class where I lectured, my preparation looks very different than when we're doing these projects. Next, you need to create infrastructure and resources. You have to have space to build projects. You have to have computers and technology to interact with. Another important part of STEM education is creating partnerships with both the community and government and with corporations who are interested in sponsoring STEM education programs. So I know when I was in Hyderabad, there's High Tech City. So many of the businesses in that area are very interested in STEM. So how can they partner with the schools? And then finally, there has to be government support. Ultimately, at the end of the day, your students take tests and you would have to know what that test looks like. And in the United States, we have requirements for graduation that we have to meet with our STEM courses.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, Jessica, these days STEM is actually gaining popularity all over the world, and every
Yes.
continent, I think they are trying to adopt this particular innovative program in their curriculum.
Yes, actually, when I was in Delhi, they had just started the first robotics competition. So that was something I got to observe in Delhi. So I know your country is doing work in this area.
Yes, recently our regional government has also decided to implement this STEM program in our schools. So
Great.
probably, I think within a few years' time, I think our dream come true in this region too. So my students are able to learn the STEM classes.
Yep.
So let us see that all our long dreams will come true. So here is another question.
Yes.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good morning.
This is Nandikishore, 9th grade student from Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. Can I ask one question, ma'am?
Yes, please do.
What qualities do STEM students have upon graduation at the different levels in education?
Great question. And so my answer to that question is that the qualities are very similar, whether you're talking about primary school, high school, or college. And those qualities are very similar in that we want students to have strong problem-solving skills. We want them to know how to use technology well. We want them to be good thinkers. We want them to work collaboratively as teams. STEM does not happen as an individual. We want students to be curious and ask questions. We want them to be creative and innovative and come up with new solutions. And then finally, we want them to be ethical. We want them to make responsible decisions for their community. The difference between the levels is how deep we go into that learning. So for example, one thing we've already talked about is that my students built things to go on rockets. In elementary school, we may really just focus on what is a rocket and what are the parts. And the students would create a rocket based out of things in their classroom. At middle school, which is in high school, students would focus more then on the physics and the chemistry that make the rocket go. And they might do that by building model rockets that actually launch. And then when they get to university, they're ready to build the actual technologies that we'll use. So for example, this is a rocket that was built at the University of Colorado. It's called a sounding rocket. And it was built by undergraduate students to test their experiment ideas. And so with STEM, we have these same skills that we want students to do, but we just want them to go deeper and deeper as they go up through the grade levels.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And these are the flags we got from one of the schools. We have collaborated with one elementary school in Nebraska.
Oh, very nice.
Students exchange the letters with them, and recently they have sent these handmade flags from.
That's very cool. My students I just took to school today. I bought a bunch of Indian flags and Indian rupees for my students to interact with. Oh,
this is one of the chalkboards I think received Idaho.
Nice.
Yeah,
Idaho, great.
There are many, I think, some souvenirs came from U.S.A. and even Japan from South
Nebraska's next door to us.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am well. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm fine. Thank you. I'm so lucky
Good.
to ask this question. This is P.H.S an 8th grade student from Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. I would like to ask a question. Shall I ask?
Yes, please do.
How will you plan content STEM classroom in other subject areas?
Okay, great question. So I teach at a STEM school and we integrate in a lot of different ways. So for example, we do cross-disciplinary projects. So my favorite cross-disciplinary project is that students in their English class read books and then they use engineering to solve problems that the characters in their books are facing. Another example is that we do a lot of what are called field experiences or field trips and guest speakers. So just like I'm talking to your class today, the first week of school, my students have an engineer coming in to talk to them about materials engineering and how they study materials to make different designs. We do a lot of research projects and presentations. We do a lot of art and design integration. So if you look here in these pictures, what you see is a musical concert and us visiting a field trip to the concert hall to understand the technical aspects of how music is made. And then finally, we do reading and writing, speaking and listening in every class. Being literate and being a thinker is fundamental to STEM. And so that's important in every class.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. Yes. Okay. One student, in fact, has missed the session, and on behalf of the girl, I would like to ask the question. So here I have to search the questions, and meanwhile, I ask you one question. So could you please share your experience spending in India? Especially Indian culture and tradition, because the Western culture is a bit different from Indian.
Oh, it's very different. Let me grab some pictures here really quick. So I loved India. When people ask me what my favorite part of India was, I say the people. The welcome was so warm.
Oh.
So we were able to visit the Taj Mahal and see the beautiful architecture. So that was one of my highlights. We also were able to experience Bonneloo. So here is the Bonneloo festival that we celebrated. We got to learn about wearing saris. We got to see the flowers being created. We got to dance. So that was very exciting for us. We had not done that. Another exciting highlight was actually in Delhi. Sorry, let me zoom and find it. The welcoming ceremonies that your schools throw, where we were welcomed so warmly, were a big highlight. That is not something we do here in the United States. And then last but not least, we got to tour a lot. So here's me with the Charmineer. And we got to go to Chamala Palace. So that was neat. And then when we were in Delhi, I think one of the highlights for us was seeing this robotics competition. So the 10th grade students in Delhi had created their robots. So this was one team of girls. And so we were able to go watch them compete for the first time. And it was really neat to see the team spirit and how excited all their peers were. So over the course of 2 days, 22,000 students came to watch the STEM competition.
Wow.
So those were some of my highlights.
Yes. How did you enjoy the Indian food? Indian food is spicy. I think it's a bit different from
yes, it was definitely different. In Colorado, we have something called green chili. So, oh, here's food. We'll pull that up. I loved the food. My favorite was chule bhara, I think is how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
I also really, really loved garlic naan. So my children are getting tired of me making that with every meal at home.
So yes, this girl is celebrating her birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, would you like to give the chocolates or toffees to Jessie?
Yes, sir.
These are? Okay, Jessie, these are the toffees and chocolates for you.
Sounds good. I'm sure they'll be delicious. You'll have to let me know.
Thank you. And actually, the beans and rice is something that is part of my lunch menu when I was in USA for 45 days. So this is special menu for me at that time.
Yes, it was delicious.
Yes, absolutely. So here is the question, my student. What does the STEM classroom look like?
Oh, great question. So here is actually my classroom with my students. Let's see. This is an elementary STEM classroom. And so on a normal day, you would come in and you would see us doing hands-on learning. We would be doing projects. We would be building or creating something. We use a lot of interdisciplinary approaches. And so when we do a project, we're going to read about it. We're going to write about it. We're going to create something. We're going to collect and analyze data. We're going to create graphs to show that data. It's going to be very collaborative. So in all these pictures, you can see students are working together in groups. Very rarely do we sit in rows. We almost always sit in groups of 4. There's a lot of use of technology, different types of technologies. And then finally, you're going to see a lot of real world applications. So for example, these students right here are learning the idea of Newton's first law for every action or an object in motion stays in motion. And they're creating a ball drop to learn about how to keep objects from changing their direction of motion.
Okay, thank you.
Talking with you all. I hope you learned something new. And when I talk about STEM education, the one thing I want you to know is that your questions are important. You all can ask great questions and solve big problems. And our world has lots of problems that we're going to have to collaborate to solve. So don't ever forget that you can ask questions and make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you so much on behalf of my